It is often said, and you'll probably hear it a lot this week, that a dog is man's best friend. And my guest today is absolute living proof of just how true that can be. In 1991, he was seriously injured in an accident while serving in the Gulf War, and as a result, lost the use of both his legs and all memories of his wife and their 2 children. He couldn't talk, walk, or write, and became enclosed in an isolated world of anger and bitterness. And things might well have stayed that way if it hadn't been for a chance meeting with a truly remarkable dog. And so I'm particularly thrilled and honoured that he has kindly agreed to come onto Viking.TV and to tell us all about it. He is Allen Parton. Allen, welcome to In Conversation.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Now, I happen to know, because we had a little 5-minute chat before we went live, that that you're not alone.
No, I've got EJ here. I'll try to see if I can wake him up. Excuse me, EJ. It's a typical lazy Labrador. Here he is. Here's my
EJ.
Jr.
Hello, EJ. Oh my God, so sweet. Gorgeous.
EJ Puck. Are you going to go up? No, he's going to settle down.
Lovely. Well, we're going to talk a little bit. We'll come to talking about EJ and how EJ assists you. But I mentioned in my intro that, Allen, that you had an accident in Muscat in the Gulf of Oman, which kind of divided your life in two, the before and then the after. So we'll come to the after part in a bit, but just tell us first, what were you doing what was your job, and what were you doing in the Persian Gulf?
Well, I'd served 22 years in the Royal Navy. I was a weapons electrical engineering officer. I'd worked my way up to get my commission, and I was down there. There were lots of sort of munitions that we needed to know how they worked, as well as designing weapons. You needed to know how to counter them. So our job in the Gulf was collecting weapons, taking them apart, documenting them, see how they worked, and seeing how we could counter them. But that was my job down there on that at the time.
And was it, what attracted you to the Navy? Was it love? Did you have a love of the sea as a child, or was your father?
I had a great aunt who used to work on one of the great liners, the Queen Mary, and my mother was a single parent, and we always used to go and see our great aunt on the Queen Mary, and the chefs always used to make us birthday cakes and things like that. And though we come from quite a hard background, it was a lovely thing to do. And when you go on something like the Queen Mary, you have to be inspired from a council house in Azemir to that sort of, it was a luxury liner, and it always stayed with me. I was always envious of my aunt sailing from Southampton, and it was just something that just appealed to me and stayed with me throughout my life. And at school, I never wanted to do anything else but then join the Navy.
Right, yeah. And how did you feel about going off to the Gulf War?
Well, I was working up in Bath on design, and then I was reading in the newspaper that the Gulf War was happening, and I was so frustrated being back at base and not being where I needed to be, to the point that I kept sort of ringing up Navy Drafty every week to see, could I go to war? You could imagine the guy on the end of the phone thinking there's a right nutcase here, but and eventually I got my draft to go. But for me, the naval war had finished. The oil rigs had been taken out, their fast patrol boats had been neutralised, so it wasn't a real naval battle. So ours was quite a clinical operation. But I was glad to be down there. But that was my job, that was all I'd ever joined up to do, to be a weaponeer.
Yeah, and so you're out there, you're in Muscat, and then one day you have the day that changes your life. You have an accident. Well, what kind of accident was it?
It was a road traffic accident, and I was basically suffered a traumatic head injury that left me in hospital for 5 years. As you said earlier on, I woke up, I couldn't remember being married, the birth of my children. I'd lost 50% of my life history, which sadly to this day has never come back. I couldn't read, write, walk or talk. And also, sadly, I'd lost all the emotions that make you human: love, hate, happiness and sadness. And I believe if you analyse yourself, if you lost one of those emotions, you can't be human. And I've sort of lost all 4, and I struggled with that greatly. And that's where really I was. The advice to my wife was maybe put me in a war pensioners home and move on, because, I wasn't going to recover. But that was the sort of prognosis.
Yeah, I mean, you wrote a book in conjunction with your wife describing your experiences, and I just read it in the last couple of days, and I was trying to imagine what it's like not having over 50% of your memories, especially really important memories about your past. And I kind of came to the conclusion that that's what makes us human, that we are our memories to a large degree. I mean, it would be very difficult to imagine being able to have a successful life without any memories whatsoever. I mean, luckily you still have some, and you've managed to regain some since. But it really is what we are, our memories in many ways.
I mean, how can you love someone if you don't know them? That's very, very hard. To learn to re-love my children again was probably easier than it was to learn to re-love my wife, because children you can sort of get an affection for, but it was hard in all other aspects. And yeah, it's left me in a sort of way as very black and white. I don't have this lovely shade of grey in my life, but good business acumen, but not good for every aspect of life. But yeah, you can't change what's happened, but you can work with what you've got, and that's what we've chosen to do.
Well, let me just because you were flown back from the Gulf of Oman and to Portsmouth Hospital, and your wife comes to visit you, and you have no idea who she is. And there's a quote I'd just like to read to the viewers that you wrote in your book, and it says, well, you said, and I thought she seemed like a nice person, but she was a complete stranger to me. I didn't remember ever seeing her before, never mind marrying her. I had no feelings for her whatsoever. Inside my head, there was a vast, fuzzy blankness. That must be, it must have been quite scary. Were you afraid a lot?
I don't know. There was a lot of not understanding in the military. We always lean back on our training. You're trained for all situations, for fires, explosions, crisis, injuries. But there was no book that I could refer to on this one. And I knew what a wife was. It just wasn't my wife, and I couldn't be convinced otherwise. And I think it was Sandra who knew before anyone else in that ward, because she is a nurse by trade. That was her background. Straight away, she cottoned on before anyone else. And yeah, it was odd. And again, it's you couldn't make those sort of situations up. And to me, I think the cruelest thing is you can't dictate how an injured mind works. Why I can remember something from 76 as a young sailor, but I can't remember going down the aisle with my wife when we first got married. And I know what I would choose to remember, but the mind doesn't allow that. And it's been, I sometimes even now she might say, well, you must remember, and then she realizes I don't. But we always live in hope. I've never had a flashback to this day, but you've got to look forward. If we can't change the past, we can make the future.
So when you see James, can you put that photo up again? The photo of the first time you got married to your wife. When you look at that photo, is it as if you're looking at someone else's wedding? I mean,
it is. I mean, yes, I'm clever enough to now know it's me in there with a full set of hair and looking young. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't feel the emotion that Granny might be around the corner or who else was there. And that's quite hard because my wife does a lot of photographic journaling now. She does these sort of journals of all the photographs we have, and she's making sense of them, but they're not my history. But I can see I'm in them, and it's very weird. The only way I can explain, and I'm not encourage anyone out there to do it, but it's like going out and getting really drunk and then looking at the pictures in the morning, and and you can't remember. And I shouldn't trivialize it, but yeah, it is hard. As I say, they're not my memories, and I can't make them my memories. The warmth, the depth. Getting married is such a special day, and God, how cruel is that?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't life be so much better if we could just select which memories we keep and which we lose? But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work like that way.
It doesn't work that way. So you left hospital, you went home, tough times. You were withdrawn and disconnected from the world, to so much so that you actually made not one but two suicide attempts. And luckily, you didn't succeed in either of them. But just tell us about the second one, because there is actually a rather black humor in the second. What,
Well,
what,
I suppose so. I mean, I was at Headley Court at the time, and I had no sense of loss of family, but I did have a sense of loss of my military career. I was career Navy. I should still be there today. You know, I never ever saw, never planned what happened. And yeah, it was a coward's way out. But one day I was in the gym, and for some reason, I just thought if I could get myself fit, that would make everything work. Everything. It was just the logic of the brain at the time. But in the gym, they just put up these mountaineering blocks and climbing. It's in the days when it was quite new in gyms to have these mountain climbing things, and they'd had someone up from the dockyard in Portsmouth up to Headley Court to put these spot weld these big eyelets on the ceiling to hang ropes from. And I just decided that day I just had enough. I couldn't see one day become another day, so I just literally tied the rope around my neck and leapt off my chair. Made sense at the time, and the eyelet was so badly welded it came flying out the wall, and you got this as the rope come flying down, and this thing come flying down beside me, hit this parquet floor, which was pretty expensive at Headley Court, and made a huge dent in it. And I was so fuming that, you know, it could have killed me, and it wasn't the way I intended to, you know, whatever. But yeah, looking at it now, you know, it was, you know, but it was how I felt at the time, and for whatever reason, you know, it was never meant to be. And I'm pleased it's not. And as I said earlier on, you know, suicide is a very permanent solution to a temporary problem. You know, and yeah, I had to one day sit down with my own children, and as dark as the humour is, and tell them what Dad had done. And when my 8-year-old daughter turned around and said, "Well, Dad, didn't you love us?" That was quite a hard question to answer, and that's where you pay the piper. For every action, there's an opposite. And yeah, that made me sense. And looking back now, what a waste. But at the time, it was real. If I was probably back there, nothing would have changed. But yeah, I'm glad that isn't the case, and I'm very glad here, and I value every breath every day.
Alan, we're just as glad as you are. Thank you. Yes, you see a lot of things, but luckily not that. Yeah. So eventually it became obvious, Alan, that you weren't going to be able to resume your former career, and the Navy let you go, and things weren't looking so good at all until in February 1998, you had a chance meeting with a little Labrador puppy called Endal. So just tell us, how did that meeting come about?
Well, I was going to daycare. Things at home had got quite bad, where they decided the easiest thing to do to give my children a break, because I was almost like a cancer in their family, denying them a growing up. I didn't like their noise, their vivaciousness, and eventually the social services said, look, we've got to give everyone a break. So a daycare bus would pick me up every day, take me into Portsmouth, I'd do my daycare, and then come home at night. And it was just one day while I was doing that my wife had seen in the paper that another charity, assistance dog charity, were looking for puppy parents. Fabulous families that will take an 8-week-old puppy, a 10-week every week class every week, learn the lessons of the week, reinforce and go back. And they do that for 14 months, and then they sadly give the dog back. You know, it's a big shout. But Sandra had never had a dog in her life, but had seen it and thought, well, maybe that's something I could do. And she volunteered to be a puppy parent. She ended up with a little yellow Labrador called 30, and she was going to puppy class every day, every week. I was going to daycare. But one day, the man upstairs moves in a mysterious way. My daycare bus didn't come, and it coincided with puppy class day. So up I went with her, and I didn't engage. Though I didn't have autism, my head injury sort of made me look very, you know, I had that inwardly, didn't want to communicate about me. And I went into this training centre, wheeled into the corner. Everyone tried to say hello, but learned in 30 seconds that wasn't going to happen. And as it happened that day, there was this little Labrador up there called Endal, who had health problems. He had a bit of an attitude problem, i.e. if you asked him to do something, if he didn't want to, he wouldn't, which is not one of the high skills we're looking for in the assistance dog world. Right. But he saw something on the floor by my wheelchair, trotted across, picked the item up and stuck it in my lap. Well, normally these dogs needed a treat, praise or reward, and he got the stone wall, and that made him so angry. Then he went and got something else, didn't get a reaction, went and got something else, didn't get a reaction. And eventually, to cut a long story short, I was disappearing behind a mound of stuff. But just before I completely disappeared, the brain switched on and I smiled. And that day, that dog came home and stayed for a modest 13 years.
Because up until that point, you really hadn't smiled.
No, they just knew it. Everyone knew that, you know, Endal had a questionable future, but he'd chosen in that day, in that act, this is where he wanted to be. And when I couldn't talk, he learnt sign language, hat, razor, gloves, coat. He learnt about 1,000 things of signing. So though I couldn't communicate with my family, I could with that dog.
But Alan, before you had your accident, were you a dog person? I mean, did you grow up with dogs?
Yeah, well, I grew up with Yorkshire Terriers and Shih Tzus, but I do like a dog with a leg in each corner.
Yeah.
I like a big dog. But yeah, no, I did. We had Yorkshire Terriers, and they were very characterful. But my granddad always had the gun dogs, the Labradors, and it was always lovely going up to see him once a week. I love my gun dogs, and I've always been a Labrador. That has been my preferred breed, and there's other good breeds out there, But I love the Labrador.
Well, I was going to ask you. I mean, because Labradors seem to feature a lot in this kind of work. What is it about Labradors that makes them particularly suitable as opposed to, I don't know?
Well, Labradors and Golden Retrievers are statistically the best dogs, and the cross of them for the guide dogs. They are just a willing, biddable dog that just want to please. So, you're pushing against an open door. And if I do that on the side of my face, that means electric razor. Endal used to, but EJ does now. We'll run upstairs, find it. If it's in a drawer, open it, take it out, bring it downstairs. That's no different than the lord on the estate shooting the pheasant, the dog running across to pick it up through the bracken, retrieves it, bring it back to the lord's feet, drops it there. All you're doing is changing the environment. The dog already has that need to collect, to give, to work for, to be loyal and biddable. And they're just lovely dogs. And, it was that came into my life unexpectedly. And he never left. He never gave up on me. On the grumpy days, he made me laugh.
So you took Endal home with you that same day, the day?
Yeah. Sandra had to give up the dog she had because it would be wrong to brought a new dog in. She then took on another puppy. So we sort of introduced two dogs into the house. And it just really worked. Endal just started doing things for me that he hadn't been trained to do, but he knew they needed to be done. If I fell unconscious, he learned to put me in the recovery position, to cover me with a blanket, to hit the emergency phone. He could operate traffic lights. He was getting stuff I'd forgotten. Even if I did something as silly and it wasn't drink related, put my shoes in the fridge, that was quite good for a neurological injury. He would just know where they were, and he'd become my memory dog. And even in the village, when Sandra trusted me to go out on my own, which was quite something, if I went to cross a road without looking, because it was a childlike mindset, he would stop me. And I'm thinking, God, what's he sniffing at now? And he was actually thinking, well, you're at the side of a road, and it was that sort of thing. And just on a daily basis, I'd been in a pit of despair. And every day that dog just dragged me further and further away from it. And if there's an animal on the planet that can teach you lost emotions, it's got to be a dog. And it certainly was in my case.
Wow, but it's pretty powerful. I just, were you not worried in the beginning that you might become too attached, and then the dog would be taken away from you?
I did. I didn't feel he was my dog, but I was trusting him, and there was a bond. I didn't have a relationship with anyone else, but I did with this dog. Every morning I woke up, he was called the 6 o'clock dog because he would put his nose on the side of the bed at 6 o'clock, and if you opened your eyes, you were damned. There was no lying in bed. Your legs were pulled out. The wheelchair was wheeled in. You went downstairs to get the breakfast cereal out. And for 13 years, I had cornflakes. And it's not my favourite, breakfast cereal, but that's what he liked to get out every morning. He looked after me. Everything he opened, he shut, which my wife says you can't get men and boys to do, but that's probably true. But yeah, he was just there for me, and he never gave up on me. And every morning he took away that pain. He made me laugh. There was always something he did that made me laugh and smile. And very quickly he taught me to hate. That was an emotion. I hate people that are cruel to animals, and you probably understand that, Alan. It's something I can't understand in humanity, anyone who can be cruel to an animal. And it was because of him, I re-engaged with my children. And, one day I was saying to someone, I don't remember being married in the early days. And this lovely lady touched me on the shoulder and said, no, Popeye, you don't remember the first time, but you will the second. And, it's that's the bit in the next story. But he brought me back to my children. I couldn't talk, and I signed with Endal quite a lot. And then one day I was signing him something, and I must have made a noise, and that excited him so much. Then it encouraged me to grunt. And the grunts become stuttered words become stuttered sentences. And, I think the wife wants to take the dog off me now to shut me up. But, it was that sort of encouragement. And after 5 years at Headley Court with some of the world's best speech therapists, it was Endal that, managed to achieve what shouldn't have been happening.
Alan, I've just got as we're talking, there's people sending in comments and questions. And there's a rather lovely one here from Nancy. I think it's Nancy in Thompson in the United States. Hi, Nancy. She says, wonderful to see you, Alastair. Alan, It's all about me, Alan. It says, Alan, you have an amazing attitude given all you have been through. It is wonderful to see that you value life again. It's amazing to hear what Endal did for you. Dogs are truly wonderful for our being. Absolutely. Stephanie in Pasadena, United States, says, thank you for sharing this experience as a consultant on catastrophic cases. I fully understand the long journey to recovery Mr. Parton and his family went through. I don't have a question, but rather a comment. Mr. Parton and his spouse are the epitome of strength, courage, and resilience. Endal should have had a statue as as a hero dog in rehab facilities. Yeah, has anybody ever said there should be a statue of?
Well,
of
and
good idea.
He has his own. I hope I'm allowed to say this. He has his own page on Wikipedia, and
Oh, really?
his most viewed Wikipedia page ever, not so long ago. But
No.
he did win the Victoria Cross for saving my life at Crufts one year when we were involved in a vehicular accident.
We're going to come on to that.
Oh, you're going to come to that, yeah. So
yeah,
but no, he was. To me, I mean, I'm privileged, one, to have a very special wife who stuck with me, and people always focus on the disabled person, but it's the whole effect on everyone else who puts their life on hold. And out of 98 of us that were married, only 5 remain so of those injured in Gulf War #1, and that's that is just people falling by the way, disability, whether it's loss of limbs, broken backs, injuries, burns, or neurological injuries. The effect on the families is catastrophic, and I was just very lucky. I had a very special woman who stuck with me.
Just repeat that statistic, Alan.
Out of 98 of us badly injured, only 5 marriages remain today.
5 marriages survived today out of 98,
yeah.
And you're one of them. Wow, that's it. That's an extraordinary. I mean, it's a very understandable. In many ways, it's understandable, but it's still an extraordinary statistic.
And I think it's compatible with there's American questions from over in the USA. That is a statistic that affects all of us around the world, whatever the Australian services have served. And the public aren't always aware of that impact. As I say, they'll probably see the serviceman once a year with his medals on, being recognised and patted on the back. But behind them is the families, the mums, the dads who've been right through it. And that's a shame. Sometimes that gets lost.
Alan, tell us just give us a little window into how are puppies trained as canine partners? What is the process? Because, I think I read somewhere that they have to learn up to 100 keywords, which is, I was blown away by that.
Well, I know I'm going to introduce that we've set up Hounds for Heroes, but it's the same sort of thing. But the puppies, we select them at 8 weeks old. They come on the program at 8 weeks old, and they attend puppy class every week. 3 weeks in the training centre where they'll learn the lesson of the week. And sort of with an instructor, and then on the 4th visit that'll be at home to make sure they're not barking at the postman or eating things they shouldn't or whatever, and that goes on literally for 14 months. If a dog needs longer, it's given longer, but some dogs, like children, really shine at this and they really advance quite quickly. And then sadly at about 14 months the dogs have to come in to big boys school or big girls school, and then they do the real task work, and we will have an idea of what clients we've got, whether they're working for someone on artificial legs, in a wheelchair, high level neck injury or whatever. And some dogs naturally have a real, they know what they're doing. It's a real privilege on puppy class day. We haven't had them obviously because of COVID, but when we had them, some dogs would come in, they would be pulling their puppy parents. Their puppy parents would be like a parent with a child in a shop that's a little bit, over the top. And then the moment they say, well, just put the dog to the wheelchair, the dogs just click and they just get it. And they say, well, I mustn't pull, this might hurt. And they're brilliant. They work to the wheelchair like they've done it all their lives. And then you give them back to their puppy parents and the dog's a wild child or whatever, but it's in there. And, we select, out of a litter of puppies, we might just pick one because it's got the skills we're looking for, that sort of temperament, that ability. And one of the simple tests is just to take it into the garden and see if it follows you. And that's a dog that wants to be with you. A very simple test, but if the dog goes off and chases a robin or has got the plastic pot that you don't see it for the rest of the day, that's not going to be one that wants to be with you. So we look at a lot of batteries of tests, but it is, but the dogs have an incredibly rewarding life.
But what out of say 10 puppies, how many would make it through the assessment?
Well, say we're tending to take one or two from a litter, but they've got to be exceptional because we're a small organisation at Hounds for Heroes, so we can't afford to get it wrong, to have an inherent problem in that breed line. Could be blindness, could be hip dysplasia. So we try and sort of negate that. So take one puppy from each litter. But when we took on Squadron 1, we looked at about 119 dogs to get 6.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So let's go back to Endal, your wonderful life enhancing assistance dog. One day, Endal was helping you. I never thought this was possible, but helping you take money out of a cash dispenser in the hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And by chance, a journalist saw this happen.
Yeah.
And things really exploded. Tell us what that led to.
Well, what happened, it was one day I went to in our village, we got an ATM, cash point machine, and I was struggling to get the card in, and it was a sunny day, and I'm going to show my age now, but in those days the screens weren't that high res, so I was having to move my chair, do the numbers, and then it meant having to push my wheelchair back to take the card, the money, the receipt out. And when I looked up, it had been stolen. Someone had taken my card, my money, my receipt, and my heart sunk. And I thought, who does that to someone in a wheelchair in the middle of a town? And then I looked down at Endal, and there he was, proudly in his mouth with the card, the money, the receipt. And I thought, well, when did you do that? So the next time I went, I put the card in, typed the numbers, and he just knew the sequence. He just knew what to do. If you take the card out, that generates the money. You take the money out, that generates a receipt. And that's what he used to do. And we did get into trouble one day in Portsmouth, where there was a multi-bank with about 8 cash point machines, and he was taking everyone's money out. But I was of the principle, if it had our slobber on it, it was ours. But they were quite sure that you could trace back to the banknote numbers and transaction. But yeah, and then it was one day I just gave him the card and said, "Oh, go on then, smarty pants," and he just jumped up and put it in the slot. And yeah, next time we went, there was a News of the World reporter behind us doing an article in the village on somebody or other, and he was getting his beer money and fag money or cigarette money, and he'd just seen a dog operate the cash point machine, and the very next day he was in every newspaper around the world. It was amazing, and in those days you used to have to pay £2.50 to take money out the bank. It was that older when it first started, and we used to have to press them all around the world, and it was costing me an arm and a leg. Can you do it again? Can you do it slowly? Can you do it? And it was just, but yeah, he was just an incredible guy who just offered up, and he actually launched the chip and pin as well. He was just an incredible dog.
Because this created a sort of snowball of media attention, which just grew and grew and grew. And there was endless requests from film crews and photographers and for interviews. You and Endal were sort of in constant demand. Was this something, did the two of you enjoy this?
I mean, he had 360 film crews from around the world. But looking back for all the archive footage now, I thought, did he enjoy it? But he would see a camera and come alive. He just knew what was expected of him. He could take a film crew up to the local Petersfield and do traffic lights, light switches, lift buttons, post paper, bank, pub. He could do the whole sequence and to be down there with a packet of crisps. And one day at a local pub, we'd forgot to get him his crisps, and he just left us, walked behind the bar, took the crisps out the rack, came back and sat down there, put them in my lap and sat there. And I'm thinking, well, that just says it all, really. He's not really stressed. That's his reward, his packet of crisps. And but yeah, he was voted the world's most intelligent dog of the millennium, the most decorated peacetime dog. Yeah, the titles flew, but he was still my boy.
I'm going to pop another question in, Alan.
Please.
Because I know you can handle this. It's from Norbert in Oak Brook. Hi, Norbert. Norbert says, so inspiring. Thank you. Do you know much about dogs' ability to sniff out COVID-19?
There are some organisations over here, that medical detection dogs, which can detect. They're trying to detect cancer and other illnesses and stuff, and they've been very successful in that. I know they are trying COVID, but I don't know where they're developing. But as with any animal, the way Endal came into my life and did things that weren't written down for a dog to be able to do, for me, I'm just open-minded. Never say never. If you set limits, then you put a barrier to anything. And I don't think we've understand where animals do play a part in human lives. I mean, he's not here just at the moment, but there's another dog in my life called Rookie, and he's a dog we take all around the country, and I hope I can answer this question without rattling on too long, but we flew up to the English hospitals are still full of injured military personnel. And part of my job at Hounds for Heroes is to go and meet them and discuss with them the benefits of having a dog like Endal in their lives, you know, when they come out of hospitals. And we went up to one hospital, and I'd flown up early in the morning, 3 o'clock start, 4 o'clock taxi came, 5 o'clock Heathrow Airport, flew up to where we were going. Normally I have to make my own way to the hospital, but this time they laid on a bus. And I thought, oh God, I could do with a comfort break, but I'll keep going. And when I got to the hospital, I thought, now I'll have a comfort break. And they said, oh no, you need to go and see the veterans because the doctors changed what they're doing. So I thought, all right then. And when I got to the doctors bit of it and saw this, and then I thought, right, now I can have a comfort break. And they said, oh no, the children want to see you. They know you're in the hospital. Will you go down and see them? So we bounced down. And we normally on the children's ward, it's like a security, it's like a military base. You can't get on the children's ward, come hell or high water. But they pushed us right through the whole system. And there we were on the ward, and all these children, bright and breezy, saying, oh, can you show us what the dogs do? And I thought, well, actually, I said, Rookie, the other dog with me, a golden retriever, I said, Rookie actually wants to have a comfort break. And this little girl said, can I take him? And I got so cross when she said that. And I thought, well, I actually would like to go, but okay, you can take him. And she said, well, I want to. She said, I need my slippers. And she said that, and Rookie went to the bedside cabinet, and that's all she said. And he couldn't find her slippers, but eventually looked for all her clothes and found them. And he got them out. He put his paws gently on the side of the bed and put the slippers by her. And she took forever to put them on. And then she got out of bed, and I thought, well, that won't take long now then. And then she got a walking frame, a little old sort of people's walking frame. And she started going down the ward really slowly. And I'm thinking, oh, no, this is a bad day. But she eventually got to the garden door, and she went out with Rookie. And I said, all he needs is the magic words. Better go now, and he'll do what he has to do. And then I said, come straight back. And she was gone for 20 minutes. And when this little girl came back, she had a smile on her face like you wouldn't believe. Came back down the ward slowly, got onto the bed, hung up the frame, gave Rookie the slippers. Rookie put them in the bedside cabinet, shut the door. And then everyone in the ward was crying. And I sort of said, well, what's wrong? Has someone been taken ill or something or other? And this lady come up and said, no, that's the first time she's walked since she was badly injured.
Oh, wow.
And that's, to me, how my dog came into my life. That dog bounced onto the ward and changed that little girl's life. The occupational therapist couldn't get her to walk. She'd had 20 operations to save her leg. You know, if it had been me or you, they would probably have said it's not viable and it would have been easier. But they want her one day to walk down the aisle, maybe with her dad on her arm, to meet her husband of the future. But, you know, Rookie just bounced onto that ward. He didn't know what was expected of him other than to be there when he was needed. And that's what it's about.
How lovely. How lovely. Evans in Toronto says, Alan, is there a similar organization to yours here in Canada or the US?
We have had lots of connections. I mean, there are a lot of schools, assistance dog schools out there doing military programs. There's an awful lot out there, obviously, doing the emotional support side of things. But there are regular organisations out there. But the reasons I set up Hounds for Heroes, because I felt we didn't quite fit in. Servicemen and women look at disability a little bit different. Not that they're any less or any more than their civilian counterparts, but we look at life a little bit differently. You know, most injured servicemen are going up Everest, rowing across the Atlantic minus arms and legs. The Invictus Games is a classic. They like to challenge themselves, but it doesn't mean there isn't a space in their life for a dog. And I had the other day, not the other, it was a while back, a young man came into our training centre in Hampshire. He'd lost 2 legs and an arm in Afghanistan. And he said, maybe you have to be disabled to have a dog. And I looked at him and I think he couldn't even see his disability. And I'm thinking, but as he gets older, as things get harder, maybe that's when we sort of, you know, build in that support for him. But at the moment, he didn't see that having no legs and missing one arm was any reason to be perceived as disabled in his own mind. And who am I to challenge that? But when he's ready, we will be ready for him. But in America and Canada, there are some various schools out there, but they're sort of pilot projects of sort of like the Seeing Eye schools and things like that. So there is a lot being done out there, but nothing quite specific as I set up, because why should Endal help me and I shouldn't then use that to help others? What was the point of Endal's work if it wasn't to let others, you know, and families, husbands, wives, mums, dads, to see the benefit and share in that?
Yeah, quite. In 2001, Alan, you were due to attend the annual Crufts dog show in Birmingham, and you got hit by a car and good old Endal came to the rescue. What? Just talk us through that.
Well, we were going up, the Kennel Club saw Endal playing in an empty ring one year, and they said, it's so amazing to see an assistance dog play. They had this perception they must obviously go in a box at the end of the night, and you get them out in the morning and put the battery in and off you go. But Endal saw this empty ring and just filled it. And they said, well, if you come up every day for, a Crufts, we'll pay your accommodation and food and everything, and you just do half an hour play. So that's what we did. And it was one of the nights we had gone to bed early, because I wasn't stupid. I realised, if you go to a disco, there's always a good looking one and an ugly one, and Endal got it every time. He was the one that the public wanted to see. I was just this poop scoop on wheels. But yeah, so we went to bed early, and as I was cutting across the car park to let him have his relief, we were struck by a car, and the driver was unable to help us for whatever reason. But Endal was the first one to wake up, and it was caught on CCTV. And he pulls me into the recovery position. He covers me with a blanket from under my wheelchair. He then, barked. No one came. And that night there was a canal running past the hotel in Birmingham, and it was 4 inches thick of ice. So that's how cold it was that night. But he didn't leave me until there was nothing else he could do. And he went to the hotel and raised the alarm. And when the ambulance come, he wouldn't leave me. And he wasn't in his jacket, which complicated it, because the ambulance people were quite right. You can't take a pet dog to hospital, but he wouldn't leave me. And they said, oh, just lower the bed so he can be with him. And when we got to casualty, again, they said, oh, you can't have a dog in casualty, but he wouldn't leave me. And, they said, well, just let him in. And then eventually I knew I wasn't dying or in danger when they said, oh, isn't he lovely? Would he like some water and a blanket? And I'm thinking, yeah, he gets it again. But in the Second World War, they had a very special medal, which is the Animal Victoria Cross. And he was awarded that for saving my life.
I think we have a picture of Endal wearing it.
He was proud when he was given it. Look at him. He knew it. He knew it.
Because, talk about awards. It's unbelievable. Endal had won Assistance Dog of the Year, Golden Bonio Lifetime Achievement, Millennium Dog of the Year, Golden Bone Award, and the most significant, probably the PDSA Gold Medal, which is the one you just showed us, which is the highest honor for animal bravery and devotion to duty. I think I got that right.
Yes, you did. And he also actually got a Gold Blue Peter badge. The Queen was the one who got it before him, and he was the Gold Blue Peter badge. I wrote to them when I was 4 and got nothing, and he goes on the program and gets the gold.
I don't know how much that'll mean to our viewers in America.
America, yes.
Blue Peter is for those who don't know, is a. If you're in Britain, you know Blue Peter. It's a children's TV program that's been around since 50, 60, I don't know, a long time, and they are very dog friendly. And if you get their special gold badge, it's pretty important. It's a big deal. You'll agree with me, Alan.
You can get on the London Eye for free. Oh my goodness, that pass gets you into everywhere, the Gold Blue Peter badge. But it was a real honour because, as you said, it was an institution. I think it started in /58 and it's still going now. And it was part of our lives. So to go on there, and he actually went on, I think 4 times. He really rocked it. So if they ever wanted a special dog, he was the boy that went.
Lots of comments coming in, Alan. I think you'll like them all. This one from Poonam, who says, I don't know where she or he is. This is one of the best shows you've ever presented. So inspiring, full of hope and miracle. That's lovely.
That's very, very kind words. But as I say, it's everyone sees me and the dogs, but actually behind us there's a huge amount of people who've made it possible. And, I mustn't ever forget them in our story.
Yeah, no, starting with Sandra, your wife, I should think. There was another question I wanted to ask you. Christine in Dublin, the US, just says remarkable story. Just bear with me 1 second. Robert in Annapolis, hi Robert, says thank you for your service in the Royal Navy and your charity to help so many veterans who need the help of a dog to overcome their injuries. I am the son of a US Navy veteran and followed his path in law enforcement with US Customs. I agree with you, appreciation of Labradors and Golden Retrievers as therapy and detector dogs. Yeah, thank you for that question. There was somebody who asked a question I quite liked, and I'm trying to find about what happened. I'm sorry if I don't remember your name. What happens to the dogs that aren't selected, the puppies that don't get selected?
We don't. I love the terminology we use, and I'm very positive in that sense. We don't have failed dogs. We have
You don't have
career change dogs. We have career change dogs. And we try at Hounds for Heroes, if a dog doesn't make the grade for maybe a health or a temperament, it just hasn't the fire in its belly to do what we require it to do. We don't force the dogs. And I think that's so wrong. And I always swore when I set up a charity that the dog's welfare and health, everything is really important to me. So what we will try and do is find a family, a service family that could benefit from a dog. We spent a lot of money on training the dog, toileting on command, coming when it's called, all the lovely behaviours that can sometimes cause stress in a family that's already got stress. But we'll try and find a family that could benefit from one of our dogs that sort of goes out as a career change dog, and we've been very successful. So we don't ever sort of waste is the wrong word, but we try and use everything we put into the dog, because they're very clever dogs. Just because they don't want to be an assistance dog, because they don't want to go up and operate traffic lights and light switches and all that lot, doesn't mean they're not lovely pets. And you know, but equally, if we haven't anyone in that that route, we have got a waiting list of people who want an incredible dog that comes when it's called, sits when you ask it to, shuts things you've left open, picks up things you've dropped, and you know, is no real problem.
That question I just found came from Gwen in the United States. Gwen, thank you for asking it. Alan, we talked earlier about how your accident meant that you were left with no memory at all of your wedding to your wife Sandra, or even who your wife Sandra was. So in 2002, and I thought this was really touching, you arranged a second ceremony and got married again. And Endal was the best man.
He was. I mean, for me, we had a bit of problem because I didn't want to bless a wedding. We could bless a wedding, but we couldn't get remarried again. And to me, that seems silly, blessing something I couldn't remember. But we found a lovely vicar and we got permission from the church to get married again. And yeah, as when we're at the front of that church, we sort of said for better and worse, a little bit wiser than we were first of all. We meant it, but you know, for us it was a line in the sand. We can't change the past, we can't change what happened, but we can take charge of what our future, and that's what we chose to do. And it was an incredible day. And when Sandra in the morning I had to get someone to help me. I was still shaking. I was saying, well, what happens if she doesn't turn up? And someone did say, well, you are still married. But you know, I had those nerves again, because it was, to me, it was the real thing. But yeah, Endal had taught me love. It brought me back to my children, and it brought me back to Sandra. And that day was an incredible day to sort of celebrate that, in some senses say thank you to Sandra, you know, because I didn't deserve it. You know, if I look back, what did I do to deserve the luck and support I've had? You know, I don't know. To this day, I don't know. And yeah, Endal was there, and he was, you know, a very, very special dog in our lives.
Oh, it's so touching. And in 2007, the British Legion asked you to be the face of that year's Poppy Appeal. And it's a rather wonderful poster that they came up with. And the first time I saw this picture, Alan, I thought, where's the dog? You know,
he was just strange. I look at it differently to other people, because I do. He was in the corner. One of the camera crew were holding him, and he was whining because he wanted to be alongside the wheelchair, you know. And but yeah, it was up in London. It was a very cold morning. It was the businessmen were walking by. But when I saw that picture, that was the reason I needed to set up Hounds for Heroes. Everyone thinks my story's particular, it's, you know, amazing or whatever, but there are over 900,000 amazing stories out there. And I don't know what it is in America or Canada. I mean, the numbers out there are phenomenal, but every face is a story. And, you know, everyone is a battle against their disability, their trauma, and, you know, when the guns go quiet on the battlefield, the battle with disability, bereavement and trauma don't end. For so many, they just begin. And, you know, that poster really, I saw it revealed, and I was very proud, a bit vain to think, oh, that's me on a big poster in London. But actually, I had no idea of that figure, 900,000. And what, you know, affected me was it was people from the conflicts in Northern Ireland, the Falklands, the First and Second Gulf War, and other conflicts and injuries and such like. And
that 900,000 figure just blew me away. But it's an excellent poster, and it's a great picture. It really works well. I think it's great.
I was so proud. I mean, the British Legion has been an institution I've admired all my life and have always been there for us. And when we fell on hard times, when we lost our Maori quarters, they helped us and rehoused us in the village we are now. They were there to pick up the broken pieces. So, you know, I always, on the dog's jackets, always wear, I've got one of them here, I always still wear the Poppy very proudly on the dog's jacket.
Yeah. Lovely. Yeah.
Because to me, it's important. It's not just, 1 week a year. It's every day they help.
And the tragic thing about owning a dog is that they don't live forever. And the day comes when they have to leave us. And one of the saddest days of my life was when I had to take my dog, Watson, his name was Watson, to the vets to be put down. I mean, it really, I think I probably could say it was the saddest day of my life. And the time came when you had to do the same.
Well, for me, we'd launched the Endal book at Crufts. We'd had a cracking day, a couple of days up there. All Endal had to do, he had his ink stamp and he had to autograph books and got a biscuit for it. And it was like a pig in muck. He thought this was brilliant. If I just do that, I'll get a biscuit. And he sat on this big, huge marshmallow bed back at Crufts. He'd done 13 Crufts. He was a veteran up there, one of the oldest returning dogs, consistently. And we got back from a couple of days up there, and Sandra and I decided to go into town to do some catch-up shopping. And we left him at home, and then we got a phone call to say my son said, I think Endal's fallen downstairs. So, of course, you drop everything, you rush home. And when we got home, he was on the sofa, all the legs up in the air like an upside-down table. We have a no sofa rule, but there he was. Oh, you caught me then. But he looked all right, but he wasn't right. And I knew he wasn't right because he was sniffing more. And then the very next day, it all come clear. He had a massive fit in front of us. And we realised that had taken his balance. And one of his conditions when I took him on as a puppy, he had a joint problem that as he got older had got arthritic. We knew it would. And he didn't have good balance. And, the second fit he had, which we did see, knocked his balance. But the first fit, which my son thought had fallen downstairs, had knocked his eyesight, and the sniffing was to compensate for it. And that night I had to make the most awful phone call to the vet, who was a very dear friend, and said, John, can you come and put Endal to sleep? And probably the hardest thing I had to do. And John said, well, I can't come out till tomorrow. And I sort of thought, I just assumed the vet would come out and do the deed and we'd work it from there. But that night I laid on the floor downstairs with him, cuddled him, thanked him for the journey he'd taken me on, for what he'd given me. And you could see Endal wouldn't settle. He just couldn't settle. It wasn't until I dragged my sorry backside up onto the sofa, he almost went, oh, thank God for that. I can get a night's sleep now. He's all right. And in the morning, he desperately tried to do what he did, but he couldn't. It just wasn't there. And I would give anything for him to pass me the cornflakes that morning, but he just couldn't. And when John came, Endal was put into my lap and he was given the injections. And as someone said, my life was like a jigsaw puzzle smashed asunder in the Gulf in '91. And every day Endal had gone off and found a missing bit of that puzzle. And there's a big swathe of it missing, but he made sense. That dog had given me love, hate, happiness. And when he took his final breath in my lap, he gave me something I didn't see ever coming, because my heart broke and I cried like a baby for the first time since I was injured. And in that move, in that final little thing he gave to me, it'd given me the whole me, love, hate, happiness and sadness. But in the corner of the room was that little rogue of a dog called E.J. Endal Jr., a little 11-month-old puppy who loved Endal to pieces, went over to Endal, and we always think the old dog must be seen by the new dog when that happens. Endal Jr. kissed him goodbye, went over to his corner, picked up the jacket, picked up the lead, and just took over that day. And, Endal will always be, someone described us as a real-life Wallace and Gromit. I think they mean that affectionately, the hapless owner and the really clever dog. But, Endal was amazing. He bounded into my life. God lent him to me for a dangerously short time. But he wielded his magic and he passed that on to his successor, who's, never dropped the ball.
I'm speechless. I'm going to burst into tears of myself in a minute. I mean, that is, it's one. What a great dog that. Where is Endal now?
He's in a little box upstairs. They did want him to be buried in a cemetery up in London, the Animal Victoria Cross Cemetery, but it wasn't where he lived. It wasn't who he is. And I've never really got him off the box in the bedroom. He's just sits there looking down on us. And it was, he's always going to be part of my life. And, as much as EJ is a completely different dog in some ways, the two of them have such wicked characters. I mean, Endal taught EJ well. I mean, EJ can do the cash point machine, the traffic lights, the light switch. He has his own Oyster card for operating the London Underground. Oh. He's just savvy. He's just, EJ and Endal both met the Queen, they're known. And they just had they've had an incredible life. It's just amazing.
And how clever to sort of almost seamlessly one dog moves to the other. That's just.
I think Endal knew. I always believe that Endal knew that his successor was ready.
Yeah.
You know, Endal would never have seen me struggle. He didn't know. It would destroy him to have seen me struggle. But I guess, you know, he knew that the time was the time. And, you know, we'd had a lovely day at Crufts, all the things that were right. And ironically, they had a documentary that went with the book, and it was shown the very night that I was sat downstairs cuddling him. And it was funny. You could see him looking up at the TV, hearing my voice. And I'm thinking, you know, it's surreal, but what a fitting end.
Wow, Alan. Well, I've got a little comment I'd like to read you from Deborah in Richmond in the United States. And she says, Deborah says, we had to say goodbye to my daughter's 13-year-old black Labrador 12 days ago. Thank you for the high praise of Labradors. They are certainly an extraordinary breed. And thank you for such an inspiring and hopeful story. We definitely need it this year. That's a lovely comment. Thank you so much.
It is. Thank you.
And sympathies for you and your daughter losing your dog. I know it took me quite a long time to get over it, I have to admit. And for you, it must have been, life-changing. But
well, I still have memory problems, and for a while it was like Groundhog Day. I kept thinking he was still there, and I had to educate myself. So there was lots of, well, where's the dog? And of course, you know, having to be told that that was quite hard for a while. That was a little twist of fate I didn't see coming. But yeah, maybe, you know, he was just an amazing guy, and he's with me. He will be to the day I'm not here. You know, he's part of me. You wouldn't be able to tell where he started or I ended, and now EJ's the same Endal Jr.
Alan, how has this wretched pandemic affected your life? How have you been managing?
Well, I mean, we travel around the country quite a bit. EJ's now done 485 flights.
Whoa.
That all started because Endal was the very first assistance dog on a UK plane. It was something he championed. He was the first dog on the London Eye at the time. He'd done a lot of firsts, but yeah, we do a lot of flying. But this year, in irony, I was thinking that the other day, we have actually had time for us. We're going around doing talks, lectures on trains, buses, boats, because I don't drive, so I tend to use public transport because I choose to. And we meet some lovely people doing that. Don't get me wrong, you know, travel is a lovely way to meet some amazing people. Yeah. But I mean, we've actually just going out. Like I was thinking about this today, this program. Where else can you go out for a walk with your dog and then 20 minutes later be sat down doing an interview? You know, normally you would be going to a studio in London or something a bit over the top and having to travel and all that lot. And I'm thinking how nice it was tonight to go out, have a nice walk with a dog, come back in slow time and just enjoy ourselves. And he's working for me and not everyone else at the moment. And I'm loving seeing that. And he's relaxed with that. He's quite mischievous. When we go into the charity, he will pick a bin up and keep walking around with it and picking up stuff that I haven't dropped to convince me I've dropped it so he gets a reward. You know, he's very mischievous, and I hate going in a shop with him because he you know, I'll pick that up then just to get a bit of attention, you know, and he will pick something up but I'm of the belief if you touch it, you have to buy it. But I come home with some incredible stuff that I didn't even know shops sold, you know, but I don't want to offend him or the shopkeeper. But we're having, yes, it's an awful time. But again, you know, we've got to deal with it, you know, not be defined by it, but come out stronger for it. And as a charity, you know, we won't be the charity we went into it. And if you look for that, I think that won't be there. But we will be a stronger organisation and do things differently and maybe for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know. I mean, what was it Nietzsche said? If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Yeah. I do miss travel. I miss the travel we're doing. And, you know, travel is something I've always enjoyed, hence the naval career. So I'm frustrated at that and such like. But yeah, when the time's right and people are well and, you know, everyone's, you know, coming out of this in the positive and we're not losing more people, you know, in the scales we are, you know, because, you know, this is some beast we've got to fight together.
Sure. Alan, our time is almost up. I've got a last little request for you that we may or may not be able to help with. It's from Gloria in Seattle. Hi, Gloria. And she just says, can we meet Endal Jr.?
Right, I can. I'll see if I can get him off the thing. If you keep talking for a second. EJ, come on, quick. Here, come on, quick. He's just got onto the sofa 1 second. Come on, EJ.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go, Gloria. Live TV.
Come on, EJ. Up. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Hi, EJ. How are you?
Yeah, you've just woken me up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Glory will be very grateful. I'm thanking you. I'm thanking you on her behalf.
Yeah.
What a gorgeous looking dog. How old is EJ?
He's now 12 and a half.
Oh, is that kind of dangerous?
It is, but he's as I say, this has been a funny time where he is really just doing what he needs to do. He's there. I mean, he shouldn't be up on the sofa in the conservatory, but he is. But he's just here with me. He won't go from me. Wherever I go, he's there. And the other day, I tried to leave him at home, and I turned around when I was getting out the door, and there he was with his jacket and coat looking at me saying, have you forgotten someone? And I'm thinking, this is not going to happen, and that, we will stick together like Endal and I did. They always say no dog is as good as the original one, but I disagree. Every dog is different. It's like children. You love them in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan, is a huge thanks from me and on behalf of the people watching. Your story is remarkable. And as are the dogs, Endal and EJ. And I feel we should also mention your extraordinary wife, Sandra. I'm not sure many of us would have had the perseverance to cope with what she's been through. Starting with me, if we'd been married, Alan, we'd be divorced.
That's true. They said that because you can say, or we agree, we can say, that they are going to do a movie about this, and I think Sandra will be the heroine in it. I might be the black sheep in all of this, but yeah, she has been and is one incredible woman, and I'm very privileged.
I quite agree. I was going to ask you, you just reminded me, it's an obvious one for a movie. Has there been discussions taking place about?
Yeah, well, we've got the script in front of us, because the book, what makes a book doesn't make a film, as you'll understand. And yeah, we're just tidying all that off and making sure everyone's happy with how everyone's portrayed. And then it will be the next stage. But as long as Brad Pitt plays me for realism, I'm quite happy.
I think you're clear as that.
Absolutely.
Alan, it's been more than a pleasure. Really, thank you so much.
And can I say to all of you at Viking and everyone who's listened in tonight, thank you for giving me the privilege of this opportunity to share our story. It's been a wonderful opportunity tonight, and just stay well and safe. And at this time of year, and I hope it doesn't, maybe cut that out if it's not the right time of year, but just to wish everyone a happy Christmas and a really even better New Year. Stay safe, stay well.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. Well, we all wish you the same. And thank you once again for joining us. Thank you indeed, Alan. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. That about wraps it up for today. So thank you for watching from me, and with a little tear in my eye, and the Viking.TV team. Stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.